So I think that maybe
look at another job?
it's time to look at something that's a little probably more like what our clients are facing every day. And we've got this shot, which, how would you describe this key?
When I first saw this, I thought to myself, was there anybody at the shoot that actually knew what they were doing? Okay, because this is not going to help me too much. And really, to be honest, with the key's easy. It's all the roto work and all the masking that had to be done to get this thing to actually work.
So we're not trying to scare you and say, wow, you know, sometimes you need to bring out the big guns to accomplish a more difficult task, but we just wanted to show you that Smoke has all the tools in it to actually pull off a really difficult task like that. It has the ability to not only use a straightforward keying technology, but also a way of customizing your own keying pipeline.
So this is my goal, and to be honest with you, I still probably need to do a little more work on this. I just didn't have time on it. But let's go into action and see how you would do this with these two clips. We've got our foreground and we got our background image. So once again, I'm going to go into action. I'm going to take my clips automatically this time and just bring them in. Earlier I was dragging them in one at a time, but now I brought them both in. Now we saw the master keyer a second ago. As Bill was saying, this is going to be a little more than just keying. We're going to need to do a lot more work and probably have to use a lot more tools. So what's awesome is we have a tool called a modular keyer. When I step into the modular keyer, what you're going to see is that it is a node-based keyer, meaning I have multiple flows of information. One of them is going to affect my RGB, and one is going to affect my alpha. And down below here, I have a bin filled with tools that I can use to get the end result that I desire. Also, what's great is Smoke gives you all these different preset layouts that you might want to use, or you can create and customize your own, such as I have done here, where now I've got, this is my RGB information, this is my alpha information, and I've added the tools that I think I'm going to need. So let's go to a two-view layout. And we'll start using the master keyer just as I was doing before, but let's go to our front here, and I want to just start pulling the key. So I go and get sample that key once again. If we look at our output, we can see, again, like I said, the key isn't really the major problem. I probably do need to come in here again, maybe add some work to the patches like we did there, maybe add a patch for the white area. But our problem is really going to be the fact that we need to start rotoscoping all this stuff out. So what I have is, I've added a mask tool already, and I want to come in here and start adding the masks. Now we're going to spend the next hour and a half doing this live. No. Okay. I'm going to add a mask here. We're going to just create a couple of masks to give you the idea of the power of also just using the tracking tools inside of Smoke. Whoop. I got one too many masks, so let's just delete that one. That's the one.
Yeah.
Throw that away. Let's go back out. Okay, so I've got my mask here, and what I want to do now is track this. So as I showed you earlier, you've got the tracker available to you in every single module that you step in. So I'll come here and I'm just going to position my tracker marker where I want it to be, over here by the light. And we're also going to just start analyzing this forward and backwards. So I'll click it forward. So it goes forward frames, hold it on really good. Now watch this, when I go backwards, watch how tight that track's going to hold on to that mirror, even though it's actually almost disappearing out of the scene. And I can go step, one frame. I don't even see the mirror anymore and it's still holding on to it. So I return back out. You can see now what Smoke has done for me. I probably have to come in here and fine tune and finesse this a little bit, but between the tracker and the masking tools, Smoke has done probably 90% of the work for me, and I just come in here and I finesse and fine tune this up as how I would need it to be. All right, let's add another mask though. This time we're going to worry about the outside of the car. So again, I'm going to add my mask. I come in and I draw my mask around the outside of the car as you saw before.
Do you want to be on frame one?
I do want to be on frame one, Bill. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's throw that one away.
So go in here. Let me get my...
There we go. Let's go back
let's
to
go
frame
frame one like Bill. Let's actually go to the last frame.
Oh, last frame. That's right.
We'll start at the last frame, Bill. Thanks for keeping me on track here. But let's go and add that mask like Bill was saying. I'm going to create my mask right around the car as we were doing before, as so. I'll close it off. Now the difference this time is I'm going to select all my control points. And now when I step into the tracker, look what Smoke has done for me. It's put a tracker marker where every single control point for the mask is. So now I can come in here and make some adjustments to this, such as enlarge the tracker reference boxes and click Analyze. So now Smoke's going to go through the frames and start pulling the track for me. It's doing a pretty darn good job.
You lost a little
bit there, but let's step back out so you can see what's happened now. My mask has been animated and tracked automatically for me. Again, I would probably have to fine-tune this, and like a good demo artist, I've got one where the masks are already created for us.
So the point there was that you could track either the axes or you can track the individual points of a mask. So it's a lot of powerful tracking capabilities in the mask area.
Right. So here I got about 5 masks that are all done. Let's take a look at the end result in action. So now the next issue we have is this horrible edge that we see. So what do you typically do? We're going to go to a tool such as this, and we'll turn on the shrink, maybe turn on the erode or so, and start to degrade my actual mat. And I don't like the way that's looking. That's going to look fake.
That's not going to work.
So let's turn those off, and let's go over to my tools. And like I said, I've got all these tools that I can use. I'll bring a tool in called the pixel spread. So what this tool does is it actually works on the RGB information, not just the alpha information, and it can expand or contract my actual file. So if I go back over here, and I'm going to set this to actually be the result so you can see this better. Now watch what happens on my pixel tool. As I start to increase the amount, you'll notice that the pixels are actually being spread past their original position, which allows me—
But just on the edges.
Just on the edges. So this is going to now take my edge and bring it past where the alpha is, which is then in turn going to make it much cleaner. So now you can see in the action environment, if I set this back to being 0, no effect, there's that horrible edge. If I enter it back to a value of about 6, I've got a nice clean edge.
Right, so the mat isn't affected. You're basically spreading just the edges of the foreground out to fill those kind of problem areas. So you can see Ken's just thrown away a tool and he's dropping a different tool in. This is what we mean about being able to customize the pipeline within the keyer. So you can have multiple master keyers isolating separate areas. You can have multiple garbage masks. You can have multiple color corrections for the foreground. Anything you want, it's completely free form.
Exactly, and why I'm using the master keyer on my RGB is because it has such powerful color suppression tools built right in it. So if I come out here and I just sample that green once again, and we go back and look at the actual result over here, you're going to see that this tool up there just took all that green spill that was in there and removed it. As I toggle it on and off,
it's
you
just
can see how
one button.
powerful that is.
Yeah, a one-button suppression tool, which is great. So you don't get the green in the hair of the weather guy. You don't have to deal with that. You just turn on the auto color correct for the spill and it's fixed.
And it also has a color trackball where I can shift the color that I've suppressed into another color. So in the case of this, I know my background's got an orange tint to it, so I've now dragged that, and we return back into action. I now have a somewhat color corrected image. I need to do a little bit more work, so let's add a color corrector to the actual layer. So now I can come over here, and I can go into what's called the color warper once again, and I'm going to work on my gamma, and I can start to make adjustments to this to try to color correct this to match exactly the color that I want.
Right, so you get different powerful tools like gamma, color curves, corrections to be able to kind of make that look like a little bit more like it's sitting in the nighttime scene that we have.
Yep. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go bring in our back plate as another layer, because what I want to do is track that back plate to the actual front plate, and also just like any other program where you have a hierarchy of layers, I can control what layers are in front of each other. But in this case, since I brought that in as an individual layer, I can now track that to the back plate, which is going to be that car footage. So going back to my tracker tools, I step into the tracker, you see automatically Smoke's giving me one tracker. I'll just position it right there. Again, I'm utilizing the tools that are given to me here inside of Smoke because it's doing a lot of the work for me. It's that easy to track this and go frame by frame until I see that's about to disappear. I'll stop it again, I'll step a couple frames. But when I return back into my action environment and we look at the end result, we can see what's happened here is that backplate has now been animated to follow the movement of the car in the beginning. I'll go to my node and add one more axis for that backplate, which allows me to offset that as I want it to be. So maybe I want to drag this up or reposition this to look a little bit better inside the scene. So this is looking good. The last thing I want to do is add that reflection on the car. The car obviously was not in that environment. So let's go back out to our desktop and bring in a clip that I'm going to use for that. And that new clip has been brought in right here. Let's just turn off its matte. So what I'll do is change the blend mode from blend to screen, which now we can now layer over our car. Let's also go and start to rotate this in the scene so that it's going to match the actual position of the car. And as I mentioned earlier, the strength of this environment is everything is 3D. If I switch this to be what's called an extended bicubic, I can now start to manipulate and model this layer to fit the shape of the car.
Yeah, you just converted that layer into a geometry to allow you to bend it and adjust it with handles. You can even subdivide internally.
If I need more control, I come in here and I can divide that, so now I even have more control of this layer, and I can manipulate and animate this over time. And then the last thing I would do, I would take my track that I did and apply it to that also, again, repurposing what I did, and then I would be able to track that along the way.
That's amazing. So we went from something that looked like a lot of work, and essentially you were able to show us how you could get that done very efficiently and quickly with your customized keying pipeline called the modular keyer inside of Smoke on the Mac. So let's take a look at the final that you're going to load up here, where you've actually gone a little further, added some lens flares.
lens flares and tracked the lens flares to the light. So if I go to the first frame, you can see what we've done. We've added lens flares, did a little better job on the color correction and so on. And then I process it out, and we go back to our desktop. Remember, this is what we started with. We walked in Monday morning, and we're thinking, you got to be crazy. I'm never going to be able to get anything out of this. But because we have Smoke on the Mac, we were able to pull a good key, use the masking tools, use the tracking tools, and end up with a really good result.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool example. So let's talk about Smoke on the Mac. It's on the Mac platform. There's other programs from the media entertainment group at Autodesk that run on the Mac platform, things like Maya, Motion Builder, Maya and Match Mover. So why don't you show us how Smoke can interact and share data between those two programs?
It's pretty amazing, because for the FBX file, I can be importing 3D geometry, cameras, and so on. So here I am in Maya, and my Maya artist has modeled the Smoke logo, and using Match Mover, the 3D tracker that comes with Maya, they created a 3D track, and they linked this logo to appear as if it's on this clip, the mountain along here. Also, I just want to say thank you to Artbeats, first of all, for letting us use our great footage. In fact, we're going to be doing a stereo demo in a second. You're really going to see how I'm going to utilize some great footage that they have. But I want to send this over to Smoke. And what I want to do is I want to have the 3D track come in. I want the camera to come in. I want this 3D geometry to come in. So it's as easy as going out here, choose Export All. And from Maya, we can export to several different formats. But if I choose FBX, I can create an FBX file that then in Smoke, if I step into the action environment once again, and I go over to my bin and I choose import, this allows me to come in here and go and navigate to that scene, and I can just select that file. And now if I switch my camera, we go to 2-view layout, you can see I have my original default camera in here, which is right here. I'll double click on that and switch my camera view to be here. And I'll take this guy to be looking at that too. Now you can see I have that 3D geometry came in, and also all the 3D trackers. So if I just go and bring my back plate back in, such as this, by double clicking on this and select this and bring it in, you can see now I've got my geometry brought in, I've got my 3D tracking brought in. So if I want to add 3D text or go further with this, I could. Let me hide that other camera. The next thing I want to do is bring in the actual map that was mapped onto that. Let's also turn on shading, so you can see how cool this is. So now you can see there's my 3D object that's been brought in. But let's go out to our desktop and bring in the actual file that was brought in as the map, which is right over here. Something's off. No.
Just do Control and drag on the line in the middle. The other thing we haven't told you about this demonstration is that that Ken actually learned this software. You replaced the back, so just put your back and then add the layer back.
Thank you, Bill.
He actually learned this software 3 weeks ago, or over the last 3 weeks. He's been practicing for this presentation, but imagine you're going to get in front of a big crowd, you're going to be streamed live over the area.
We are?
Yes.
You didn't tell me that. Wait a minute.
I didn't want to scare you.
You just did.
All right, but
anyways,
he's really done a great job, so I appreciate how much work you put into this, Ken.
So what I just did is I just remapped that 3D geometry with the original material all here in Smoke. I'm in my editor, people, and I'm doing all of this. This is what we're trying to really stress here, the power that you have working not only with other applications such as Maya and Match Mover, but in Smoke as itself.
All right, so that's a lot of good examples around the 3D capabilities, the action environment. Let's talk a little bit about stereoscopic 3D. And again, from Artbeats, we want to thank them for this footage. We have some stereoscopic footage as well. So we're going to put your glasses on in just a minute once we get this set up. But right now, you're showing us the left and the right eye of a mono clip.
Toggling through. So I've got these 2 clips right here. And how Smoke works with this is great. We can go and say we want to treat this as one clip. So I can go and create what we call a stereo track. So now I've got one element that is holding both the left and the right eye.
So if you put your glasses on, does everyone have glasses?
So now from the Artbeats footage, taking the left and right and combining them together, I now have a stereo object. I can bring this in my timeline and edit it if I wanted to, and so on.
Here we go. Everybody who wants some stereo glasses, we can pass those out. I'll get to everybody, don't worry. Keep going, Ken.
Okay, I just want to make sure, Bill.
Yep, keep going.
Okay, so what I want to do now is go into action once again, and I'm going to bring in just one, I'm bringing the left eye, because I want to get some tracking data off of this once again. So what I'm going to do is add another axis into here. As so, go to my tool bin, and what we're going to do is we want to add tracking data and such things as 3D text and so on. So I'm going to position my tracker marker where I want it to be.
Here we go. Oh, can you pass that one down? There we go. Oh, thanks, Tuba.
So here's my axis. I go to my axis. I go into the stabilizer once again. I position my tracker marker right there. We're just going to analyze this. The reason why I'm doing this is, yes, the art beats footage is already left and right eye, so that's already stereo. But inside of Action, I can create an actual stereo rig. So then if I bring in 3D text or other elements, I can make those stereo also. So let's go back into Action. I've got my tracker right here with the tracking data. I'll just name this very quickly. Okay, that's great. So now let's start bringing in the other elements. Let's go here and let's bring in that stereo object. And when I do, if you look at my media bin, notice that it brings in both the left and right eye. I'm going to turn the matte off for those, and I want to now turn off this back, and I want to now create that stereo rig. By default, my camera is not a stereo rig, but I can bring in a camera, and I can now tell, again, this camera to be looking through the right camera. And I always like showing this on the top view, because I want to emphasize this. So here's my camera, and it's a mono camera by default. This is how difficult it is to create a stereo rig in Smoke. I'm done. I click the button, it automatically creates the left and right eye for me, and I have all controls such as interaxle, zero parallax, toe in, and so on, just like a real camera rig in the real world. So now if I switch over to this view, let me first hide this other camera, bear with me, I'm sorry. Come over to this view, and we want to look at our new camera, like this, and I turn on stereo. We're now...
So now we're able to do stereo compositing. So if you twitch your glasses on, right? Did you got it right? You're an anaglyph. Yeah, you're good.
It is?
I think so, no?
Oh, wait, I forgot to turn the mat off. Bear with me, people. Mat off, back. There.
No, back stays on. Wait, back stays on. Select this guy. You got it in stereo, right?
Right. That's on, this is on.
Just try reloading it.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, people. Bring this
there
back in. Here we go. Now we're going to
turn the mat off.
There we go. Now we have the stereo footage. Now, the stereo footage that's coming in, as we said, is left and right eye. But what if I wanted to start bringing in other elements, such as 3D text? So I can bring in 3D text into Smoke's environment, and then we can go to the geometry and we can do such things. First of all, is changing the font. Maybe I want something a little bolder, such as this. We also want to increase the size of this, make this font much larger. And also, I want to bring depth to this. So we're actually dragging and extruding this. In this view, I'm going to switch over to a different view because I want you to be able to see the angle of this while I'm doing this. So over here in this view, if I take my stereo layer and I start to manipulate this in Z-space, I'll do this slowly. Yes. I don't want to hurt you. You'll see what's happening is the parallax is getting messed up because of the fact that we're moving the left and right eye away from the camera. And that's not what we want. So what's great about Smoke is I have the ability to turn on auto scale, so now it doesn't matter what I do with this stereo image. It's going to always keep it full frame according to the stereo camera.
Yeah, really the concept there is when you shot, this footage was shot, the left and the right eye had a certain parallax relationship, but if you want to put it in front of another stereo camera and move it in Z-space, we have the simple tools that allow you to do that to make room for 3D objects to be in front. So we can add mono and stereo objects in front of a new stereo camera to combine that stereoscopic effect for multiple elements. So we really have a great stereoscopic story and workflow on the Smoke and the Mac platform.
So I've switched my font to read something a little more interesting, and what I like to do is bring in another element because I want to have those words go behind the tree, okay? So to do that, we're just going to bring in that same stereo object one more time. It's brought in as another layer, and I'll go to its keyer, and I'm going to enter the keyer tool, but this time instead of using just that, I'm going to add a garbage mask. I've got one already created, so I've got a garbage mask. If you look at the mat, I've created a garbage mask, but what I need to do now is actually animate that mask to follow it, okay? So what we'll do is go back into the tracker, but this time I'm going to turn on rotation, turn on scaling. This allows me now to do a 2-point track where my first tracker is going to analyze the X and the Y, and my second tracker is going to do all rotation. So if I just select these guys and I start analyzing them forward, so as I said, we go through and track this. So this way the mask is going to scale and rotate if there is any scaling and rotation taking place inside the tree, the actual footage. Once it's done, I return back out, and as I scrub through, you can see it did a pretty good job. I can tell I can maybe adjust this just a little bit up here. Another thing I like to do is, this is the axis for that mask that we just tracked. I always like adding an extra control mask. Oh, I'm sorry. I always like adding an extra control to this by going here and adding an extra axis, and this is going to be my offset because I can repurpose that later. So let's go back out to action. And as I scrub along, you can see that, yeah, my words are going behind the left eye, but they're not going behind the right eye.
You need to, that's the thing about stereoscopic work. You need to do everything twice. You need to duplicate whatever work you do on one layer to the other layer. So for the left eye and the right eye, so you've done that by just copying that same mask.
I copied and pasted it, but the one thing I do want to just make sure is, as you see here, that because of the parallax difference of the left and right eye, it's shifted a little bit.
Between
so
your
I'm
eyes
just going to reposition this.
Is slightly
now
off.
I've got that mask working perfectly on both eyes. So if we scrub through here, we can see now we have this going like this. It's looking really good. Okay, let's bring in some lights.
Let's bring it up full just so people can temporarily see what you're doing, right? So one up view, Alt 1. There we go. And now everyone sees, again, you want to put that into the correct result and turn on stereo and your one up view. There you go. So everyone should be able to see now that, that mono 3D text in front of our stereoscopic footage. Okay, so the last thing you want to do is take it over the top with a little bit of 3D lighting.
Right, exactly. So let's go to my node bin here. Let's take in a light. I'm going to add one light. This first light I'm just going to drag away from, bring it toward the camera to light the scene. Now I'm going to add one more light in here. And this light, though, we're going to use as we did before. I want to set this to be an actual lens flare. Because this is a true 3D lens flare inside of my action environment, it's going to be a true stereo lens flare because I have a stereo rig, the left and right eye. So
yeah, all the 3D relighting tools are working in stereoscopic as well.
And as I drag it back in Z a little bit, and I start dragging it behind the trees, you see it's going to obviously go behind the tree, but we can take it one step further. Yep. And I can go in here and I can add one more layer, the same layer, bring that in. And with this one, what we'll do is we're going to create a Luma key on this. So I come into my keyer once again. I switch over to a Luma key. Let's take a look at the mat when I do this. I'm just going to drag this over to choke this up a little bit, like so. I'm going to invert it and we step back out. Then I want to copy and paste that once again from the left eye to the right eye.
You got a lot of layers of 3D going on here.
So I copy that, I go and I paste that. The point of this now is if I turn my mat off on that and I take this individual layer that I just did and we now position that layer back in Z space, maybe a negative, I don't know, whatever. I forgot to turn on auto scale. See, this is important. Auto scale without it on is going to ruin my shot. So I can undo that very quickly and turn auto scale back on and redo that. So let me turn auto scale back on and set this to be the negative where I want it to be. And the point of this is now that it's back there, if I take my light and I add one more element to it, which is those rays like we looked at before, I can add my rays and I can go to my object and we can blow this thing out like so. And we turn off free. Let me set this to be a negative 1600 or something. Oh, sorry, bring it forward a little bit more. As I start to maneuver around, well, I'm dragging the wrong thing. People, bear with me.
You're getting there. It looks really cool, Ken.
So now you can see it's respecting all the different lights. I'm creating this volumetric.
Isn't that cool?
And because this is all in 3D, because of the stereo rig that we have, everything is actually in 3D. The last thing I want to do is go to my output and tell it that I want you to render out both the left and right eye, and I want to put on some anti-aliasing. And when I click process, Action's now going to generate and render out my left and right eye as individual files that I can then combine and bring in my timeline and continue to edit my stereo footage all here in Smoke's environment.
Let's interrupt that process. Do you have the final that we could play back for everyone? Or just, is that the final that we have?
Yeah, that was
so let's just bring that up one more time as we wrap up so everyone can get one good look at that.
So I'll take my left and right eye again. I go to my stereo track and we'll take this. And now I go bring that up.
Wow, that's really cool. That looks great. So I think that's a really great tour of all of the incredible tools and functionality that we have inside of Smoke on the Mac. Where's my clicker? Can you move me forward? Thank you very much. So we just want to wrap up this presentation. You've been watching Autodesk Smoke on the Mac. Don't just edit, finish is what we like to call that. I wanted to remind everyone of some of the Pfeiffer study. This was a study that was done to analyze the benefits and the efficiency gained by working on Smoke on the Mac instead of working on 10 different applications to try to do the same tasks. We also have lots of resources available at area.autodesk.com. There's a free trial download that you can get. There's also blogs that will give you lots of information about the products, including tutorials and stuff like that. And of course, if you scan this QR code, you can get more information sent to you about these products and really all of our products, all the demos that we've been doing all day. I want to thank Ken LaRue. Great
Absolutely,
job.
Bill. Thanks
really
for your help.
appreciate all of that.
Keeping me on track.
That was really a lot of fun and a great tour. And thanks to our partners, AJA, for providing a lot of the hardware. And of course, ArtBeats for this stuff. And also, Ollie Wade at Delicious Edit.